All you need to know is that you're unhappy, you're uncomfortable, you're frustrated, you're not getting the result that you want, and you don't know why. And what you're saying at that point is something to the effect of, oh, I'm trying to attract more money, it's not coming to me, maybe I have beliefs about money. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And by the way, you can say those statements in any order, whatever feels right. I generally say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. But you can begin with, I'm sorry for whatever the beliefs are in me that are preventing money from coming into my life. Please forgive me for having these beliefs and being unaware of them. Thank you for taking care of those beliefs. I love you, bringing me back to a state of peace and prosperity. So that's really about the first one. We live in a belief-driven universe. What was the second one?
The second one was, there is always a way.
That is a very empowering prime directive in my life. Whenever somebody starts a project, they always want to know, how am I going to get it done? What's the plan? What's the step-by-step approach? And more often than not, there isn't one. If you simply have the guiding thought, the guiding principle, that there is always a way, then you will find a way, you will create a way, or you will develop a way. There are numerous stories of people having scientific breakthroughs and coming up with new products for this and that, whether it's businesses or something on the shelf, all because they thought there has to be a way to do this. There has to be a way. It was 5 years ago when I decided that I was going to be a musician. I looked at my bucket list and said, okay, what haven't I done? Well, I always wanted to play music, but I never sang, never played. I played a little bit of guitar, never wrote songs, never recorded, never even sang in the shower. And all my limiting beliefs came up. So I did Ho'oponopono on them to eliminate them. This made me free to move forward. And then I thought, well, how am I going to do this? But I remembered the guiding principle. There's always a way. There's always a way. And then within 5 years, I have 15 albums out and more coming. In fact, I was in Rolling Stone magazine. I was in Texas magazine. I was voted #1 singer-songwriter by Reverb Nation.
Wow.
And none of this is to brag. All of this is to say that when you get clear of your beliefs that are stopping you, and you have a belief that there's always a way to get the result of the inspiration you're following, then you will find it. Then you will do it. It's a very powerful mindset.
That's insane and so inspiring. In 5 years, you made it to Rolling Stones and produced 5 albums from scratch.
That's exactly right. Well, 15 albums, actually.
15,
but yes.
15 albums from scratch. Unbelievable, Joe. Now, the next belief you mentioned is, and it's so appropriate, nothing is impossible.
Yeah, you know, we used to say that there's limits in life, and you probably even heard it too, because in the early days when I went to the self-help seminars and read the books, they'd all say things like the sky's the limit. And what I've discovered is the sky's not even the limit. I don't think we have any limits. I don't think we have any limits at all. There might be some sort of physical limitations based on what we know about biology and physical sciences right now, but science keeps discovering more things, and we keep creating more things. So in my mind, if there's something I want to go for, I just figure I go back to the previous belief and think, well, there's got to be a way. If there isn't a way yet, I'll find it and create it, because nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. It's a prime mindset in my head. And if you come from the idea that nothing's impossible and there's always a way, then pretty much anything you're inspired to do is free game. You may not know this, but a year or so ago, I created a movement to end homelessness in the United States. It's called Operation Yes. And I put up a website, operationyes.com. It's real. I got a book out for it, and I've aligned myself with some other groups that are trying to help poverty and homeless people. But the point is, as soon as I announced I want to end homelessness, a lot of people said, that's impossible. But it's the same kind of mindset that Abraham Lincoln had to have had to say, during my term, we're ending slavery. And he took it as a mission. In another book of mine called The Secret Prayer, where he wrote that he had to do it because he made a promise to his God. He was driven by an inspiration that was on a holy level. You could only imagine the power that was surging through him. It's the same thing with me with ending homelessness. Sure, it's probably got to be an uphill battle, but if I project the idea out there into the world, the idea alone is going to fracture what the previous paradigm was. The previous paradigm is there's no way to end homelessness. Well, I'm coming from the standpoint that there's nothing impossible, let's try. And then the previous statement about there's always a way. We may not have it, but I bet we can create it. So, I mean, I get excited talking about all this. It's very, very dynamic.
No, you're getting me excited. This is riveting. I love what you just said. It reminds me about how by simply setting a bold intention like that, we pierce the previous paradigm. You're doing it with ending homelessness. Elon Musk is doing it when he says he wants to make mankind an interplanetary species. And what I'm starting to learn, and what I think people should learn, is that you don't want to laugh at these people because they're freaking serious about what they are going to do. And I wouldn't bet against you.
Yeah, and that is exactly right. Don't laugh about it. In fact, join them.
Or Elon Musk or Larry Page, who wants to make internet globally accessible and free.
I love big thinkers like that. I love big dreamers and big doers.
Now, the fourth belief that you have is I am responsible for it all.
Yes, and that ties into what we were talking about with Dr. Hulan and Howaponopono. It goes to the statement that most people don't look at very deeply. It's the idea that you create your own reality. For most people, they just look at it like, well, I create my own reality just right here, my physical being, what I say and what I do. And that's true. But the extended quantum leap version of this is that you are creating everything. So you are totally responsible for it. But I'm always quick to point out, it doesn't mean you are totally to blame for it. It means that you are creating all of it. And until this point, you were probably unaware of it. You're probably unconscious about your own creation. We're all like that. And I say my favorite example is if you go shopping in the store and you bump into somebody. You just turn and you say, I'm sorry. No guilt, no punishment. You don't have to feel bad. You were just for a moment unaware. That's how all of us are in the creation of our lives. It's not just our lives. It's everybody in our world. If you can see the person, experience the person, see the event, anything, you are contributing to the creation of it. I am responsible for all of it. This is why when I say, well, I'm going to end homelessness, it's because I'm responsible for homelessness. On one level, deep within, I'm responsible for that. Whatever my contributing beliefs are, I want to erase them. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. So it's a very empowering place to be. Years ago, decades ago, there was some therapist on TV who was trying to talk to patients he wanted to bring in. And he said, whatever your problem is, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I always loved the neutral way of stating that. That's how we are, and that's how I treat my life. I'm not to blame for any of it, but I am responsible for all of it.
Beautifully said. Wow. So at this point, you said you gave me a list of a number of different systems that you are going to cover in this training, systems to accelerate our path towards operating from this zero, no limit state of being. And one of the systems was the clearer you are, the faster you get results.
Yes. That's a powerful one, and I don't know that many people know about it, because what it means is when you get rid of your conscious and unconscious limiting beliefs, there's nothing stopping you from getting anything done. Now, we've talked about me being in the music world here, and in 5 years or so, making 15 albums. During this time, I've met a lot of musicians, professional musicians who are doing it full time for their livelihood. They don't have one album. Some of them don't have more than one or two, and they're performing a lot, and they're struggling. And what I see when I look at them is that they still have beliefs in their head about deservingness, about money, about fame or fortune, about the spirituality of what they're doing. They still have beliefs. And until they get rid of those limiting beliefs, they will just be sluggish in getting results. When I took on becoming a musician, I looked at all of the negative beliefs. They started coming up. All the negative beliefs. Whenever you reach for something new, any beliefs inside of you are going to start bubbling up. So when I reached to become a musician, I had beliefs come up, but I erased them. When I thought, who am I, almost at that point, almost 60 years old, to learn how to play guitar? Who am I to learn how to sing? Who am I to go in the studio? Who am I to write music? Who am I to release music? And then as I dissolved all those beliefs, there wasn't anything in the way for me to proceed. And in fact, I'll tell you a quick little story. My first album was supposed to take 1 year. I had hired a producer to hold my hand, and we were going to take 1 year to make my first album. Do it slow. Well, pretty quickly, the publisher of a local magazine came to me and said, we want to put you on the cover of the magazine. And I said, for what? He said, for whatever you want. And I thought, well, that's a blank check. Well, and I thought about it, and I thought, wow, I'd like to be on the cover of the magazine as a musician. That would be my coming out. And I said, when are you going to put me on the cover? He said, in 3 months. Well, that meant I had to get my album done in 3 months. So I went to my producer and I said, you know, our plan to make my CD in 1 year, can we reduce that to 3 months? And he took a deep breath, but he knows how I work and how I think. And he knows that there's always a way. He knows that there's nothing impossible. He knows that when you're clear, you can get results. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And we got the album done, and I went on the cover with my album and an article about me as a musician. 12 months to 3 months. All because the clearer you are, the faster you get the results in your life. It's all about changing your beliefs.
I needed to hear that because I've given myself 1 year to get my book out.
Yes.
Now I may need to have to step it up and get it out by December.
That's easy. That's doable.
That's beautiful, Joe. I freaking love your stories. Okay, so there were a couple of other systems that you were going to teach us. One is, I spend time in silence for gratitude.
Yeah, and I was referring to that earlier, but it's very important to spend time every day. And I really think that this is so important that we should take an hour to do it. But I also think, here's what I really practice. I'll tell you what it is. I practice something called active gratitude. It's not just gratitude, it's active gratitude. And what that means is throughout my entire day, not just in the time when I'm in the hot tub, throughout my entire day, what I'm doing is pausing as much as I consciously can to actively give thanks for each moment. I'm actively giving thanks to be here with you. These are great questions. It's a great honor to be interviewed by you. This is a great moment. I am incredibly grateful for all of this. As I go through my day, I want to pause and actively, which means I'm observing, I'm noting, I'm saying, I'm acknowledging my gratitude all through the day. That active gratitude turns your life from one of the mundane to the miraculous. The life that I live now is a moment-by-moment state of awe and wonder. I look around and I just really can't believe it on some level. But this is the miracle of life. And it's not just me. It's not my life. It's your life. It's each person. When they actively start to be grateful, then they transform. I got to tell you a quick story. Decades ago, I was out of homelessness, but I was in poverty. And I was reading the self-help books, and I was going to any of the different places that gave free talks. And they always talked about gratitude. And I thought, yeah, gratitude. I'll be grateful when I have something to be grateful for. But that's not how it works. And they told me that again and again. So one day I picked up a pencil. I'm picking up a pen right now, but I picked up a pencil back then and I looked at it and I flippantly said, okay, I'm grateful for this pencil. And then I thought, well, with this pencil I can write a suicide note. and I can write a grocery list, and I can write a poem, and I can write a song, and I can write a screenplay. And I got a little bit more excited as I realized, oh, I can write the great American novel. I can write checks. I can write to-do lists. I can write, and I went, wow, all this from a pencil. And then I turned the pencil over and said, an eraser. Who thought of that? Now I can erase the suicide note. And no kidding aside, my life changed in that moment because I switched from that unhappy, desperate, struggling man who picked up a pencil, and skeptically and flippantly started to pretend he was grateful. I turned into gratitude. And that opened my heart. It opened me up. And it's one of the keys to my success.
Could you just repeat that? There was a little gap. You said from that point on.
Yes. From that point on, I always practice gratitude. And it's one of my keys to success. It's what brought me here today. And that's why I still practice active gratitude as well as my hot tub time.
You know, there was just a scientific research article that was just put out. I found it on Google News this week, and they were studying all different traits that human beings could have to see what trait had the highest correlation with well-being. And they define well-being in a particular measurable way. They define all these traits in a particular measurable way. And guess what? Gratitude is the single greatest human characteristic that has the highest correlation with well-being in the world today.
Wow. I totally believe it, and I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad that there's even scientific proof for it, but I'm doing it anyway.
There's now scientific proof. Now, there was another system that you were going to talk about, and that is I spend time in silence to receive.
Yeah, that's really important. One of the ways that I receive so many ideas is that I allow my brain time to receive them. Too many of us, myself included, we get busy with the internet, with our email, with our phone calls, with our driving, with our errands, with our family, with our work, with our programs, with our to-dos, our errands. It just goes on forever. And ideas, inspiration can't get through. There's so much noise in our lives that the inspiration trying to get through is just hitting all the filters. And so what I do is make time to receive them, which means I'm away from people, I'm away from my phone, I'm away from the internet. More often than not, I live in the country, I go out on the property, I'm out in the trees, squirrels and deers and all of nature all around me. And what I'm doing is just being quiet. I'm being receptive. I'm not talking to myself, I'm not singing to myself, I'm just allowing divinity to bring something in. And it always does. I will receive inspiration. It'll be for another book, which explains 50 books. It'll be for another music CD, which explains 15 CDs. It'll be for a product, a service, an internet website, something like that. And I want to give you a bonus tip because I do something special when I get my ideas. So I'm making space to receive the ideas. I receive the ideas because I've made myself available for them. I then act on the ideas because I treat the ideas as a gift from the universe, from God, from the divinity, from wherever they came from. I didn't ask for those ideas. I was available. I didn't ask for them. I didn't buy them. I don't have to pay for them. They're given to me as a gift, and I treat them like a holy message that has been given to me. The next thing I do is immediately take action on the ideas as fast as humanly possible. I take action. Why? Because the faster I act on an idea, the faster I can ride the energy that came with the idea to get it done. In other words, I'm putting a saddle on the idea and I'm riding it to the finish line. What most people do is they get an idea and they write it down and they'll say, I'll get to it later. And when they do get to it, if they get to it, the excitement isn't there. Now it's a good idea and they may still bring it into life, but it'll feel like hard work. When I act on an idea, I'm acknowledging my gift and I'm riding the enthusiasm and the energy that came with the idea to actually complete it. That's my bonus tip.
Wow, love it. And That was also one of the things you said you were going to talk about. Act on ideas as fast as possible. And there's one more. And this one is a little bit unusual for people who might be unexposed to this type of thinking. And that is I ask for help from seen and unseen helpers.
Oh, yes, I do. And I never used to talk about that. But, at this point in my life, I just want to spill the beans and share with everybody what I'm doing. But I'll tell you, even when I was struggling, I talked to my angels, I prayed, I looked for help from the seen as well as the unseen. And what that means is I was never afraid to ask for help from people who were already successful. I would write to them and ask for help, say, I'm a struggling author, could you help me? And at the same time, I was never afraid to close my eyes and say a prayer, or to actually speak out loud and act as if my angels are around me and say, look, I need help paying my bills. I need a way to find a publisher. I need a solution to this problem. Show me how to get that. Guide me, help me. I've worked both levels, meaning the seen and the unseen. I've had great success with both. Throughout my life, whenever I asked for help from successful people, virtually every time they wrote back. And when I say wrote back, it was because the internet, we didn't have the internet. I was unknown. I was struggling. I'd write to authors. I'm thinking of Bob Bly right now. Bob Bly has written 50-some books himself, great copywriter. He didn't know me. When I was struggling and I lived in Houston, I would write him. I read one of his books. I wrote to him in care of the publisher. He wrote back. I never forgot it. And now we're friends and we help each other. But back then, he didn't know me. And so I would write to known people, and I was always amazed that I wrote to one advertising guy, Murray Raphael was his name, and this is decades ago. He sent me a box of his books and his advertising material for me to study. I mean, these people want to help people. If you're sincere when you go for your request, they'll note it. And if they can help, they will. That's been my experience. And then the other experience is the more spiritual or metaphysical. I wrote a book called The Secret Prayer because I'm finally talking about the prayers that I use. And I still use that today. I still pray. Before I got on this call, I did a little prayer because I wanted to be sure I was clean, clear, available for inspiration, and in this moment, present with you. So that is another thing I do. Ask for help from the seen and unseen.
And it's obviously working because this is one of the best damn trainings I've had on this program. Seriously.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Seriously, I wish I had a pen and paper next to me because there's just so much I want to write down. So
well, hopefully you've been recording.
Yes, hopefully the recorder is working. Joe, you mentioned the secret prayer. And just as a quick recap, because at this point you've gotten people so excited, I want to make sure that you share the top 3 books of yours that we can read to truly master this. Zero Limits is, of course, one. That's incredible. And I know a sequel has come out. I just got that on iBooks. I'm going to start reading it this weekend. What is the name of the sequel to Zero Limits?
At Zero.
At Zero, okay.
At Zero.
Great. And then you just mentioned The Secret Prayer.
The Secret Prayer is my most recent book. It's been out for a month or so. It's a bestseller on Amazon. So there's a Kindle version, the paperback version, and there's an audio version where I read the whole book. And there's about 30 5-star reviews, so it's really connecting with people. And it's a very important book to me because I really confess in what I hope is a very inspiring way how I have a relationship with divinity. And I do talk about Howaponopono as one of the prayers in the Secret Prayer. But the Secret Prayer, definitely At Zero, Zero Limits. And I have to admit, the book that I always hear changes lives is my book, The Attractor Factor. Mm-hmm. The Attractor Factor is what got me into the movie The Secret. And that was a long time ago. But the book's still out there, and that's probably my #1 bestseller. The Attractor Factor, then The Secret Prayer, At Zero, and Zero Limits. And thank you for even asking.
I see. The Attractor Factor. That's something else I'm going to add to my must-read list. So could I ask you for something? Could you give us a glimpse of The Secret Prayer, a technique or something from that book that we could apply?
Well, it's actually based on 3 steps. And the very first one we've talked about quite a bit. The very first one is active gratitude. It's realizing that your prayers have already been answered. It's realizing that you're already living the miracle. It's realizing that actually all is well. Yes, you want to change a few things, you want to adjust some things, you want some other things in your life, but you need to start from a place of gratitude. Most people, when they pray, are begging. They're starting from a place of lack and limitation, and from all kind of reasons that's wrong. It doesn't work. It's a very upsetting, victimhood kind of a place to be. So the first step in the secret prayer is active gratitude, really being grateful for where you are right now. And the second one is about making detached requests. And I specifically say detached requests because, again, too many people say, I must have this job, I must have this car, I must have this person. And no, you don't must have to have anything. And in fact, when you're more detached about it, the universe or God or divinity can bring you something more appropriate, something that's a better match for you. One question I hear all the time is people will say something like, my lover left me, can I attract them back or pray them back? Or I'm in love with my next door neighbor, can I have him or her? And I immediately say, do you realize there's 7 billion people on the planet? There might be somebody there that's a match for you that's not the one who left and it's not your neighbor. So the second step is to make a detached request. It's almost like politely saying, I'd really love to have this job or this amount of money or this kind of a relationship, but you're not addicted to it. You're not attached to it. You don't need it. You're psychologically at peace because you started with gratitude. So the first step is the active gratitude. The second one is the detached request. And the third one is inspired action. And inspired action means that too many people, when they pray, just kind of sit. It's the same problem people had when they watched the movie The Secret. They thought, oh, all I do is sit and visualize and the bike's going to show up at the door. Well, you have to take some action. The world is based on a co-creation. It's what you do, it's what I do, it's what everybody else does that makes the world keep on moving. It involves movement. So the point is, inspired action means when you're inspired from within, you get that nudge, you get that emotional push to do something, do it. That's coming from your inspiration. That's going to take you in the direction of fulfilling what you've requested. So there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the basic 3 steps to the secret prayer.
Wow, amazing stuff. Joe, you've delivered so much incredible ideas, models, and systems in just 58 minutes. This is exciting. For those of you listening, if you'd like to explore some of these topics further, for sure, pick up Joe's book. I can tell you so much about how zero limits, even though it's not a traditional self-help book, it's a story. That book changed my life because of that idea of intention versus inspiration. Other things to check out on this particular program, Consciousness Engineering, are the trainings with Dr. Michael Beckwith, because, as I mentioned earlier, he talks about moving through those 4 stages to ultimately becoming I am God. And then our training with Emily Fletcher, who is that amazing meditation instructor who has spoken at Harvard Business School, because she expands upon one of Joe's ideas, which is I act on ideas as fast as possible. That particular segment from Emily is amazing. And third, listen to the training by Christy Marie Sheldon. She gives her own technique, which is also really interesting, on how to clear beliefs so you can be at that zero state. And of course, Joe, look into Joe's work. It is incredible. Joe, thank you so much. This was just beautiful and enlightening.
Thank you. And Godspeed to all your listeners and viewers. Thank you.
Take care.